Steve Bannon, the former chief strategist to President Trump, turned himself in to federal authorities today after being indicted for defying a congressional subpoena. Trump himself, meanwhile, defended the violent mob that chanted "Hang Mike Pence" during the insurrection on January 6th. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Just to get you guys up to speed, you remember Steve Bannon, the former chief strategist to President Trump, who looks like his morning beauty routine is to take a peek inside the Ark of the Covenant. By the way, I know when I reference that scene that most people think of the guy whose face melted, but let's not forget, a dude's head also exploded. That dude doesn't get enough recognition. Probably because his head exploded. I bet when he goes to conventions now to sign autographs, he's like, "It's me, head explosion guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark." And people are like, "Sorry, we don't recognize you with a head." And he's like, "Damn you, George Lucas and your fantastic special effects team." I'm just kidding. That guy's name is Paul Freeman, and he's outstanding. Boy, we gotta start tying our tangents into the rest of the show. I'll land the next one. Bannon has already been arrested once before. It was last year during Trump's presidency, and he was arrested by Postal Service inspectors aboard a Chinese billionaire's yacht for allegedly scamming Trump supporters who donated to a crowdfunding scheme to buy Trump's wall, or as they call that in the law enforcement community, a Code 6.
Steve Bannon and 3 other men have been arrested and indicted, charged in relation to their role in a nonprofit organization called We Build the Wall. What the indictment here is alleging is that Bannon and these others were skimming some of the proceeds from that fundraising for themselves.
The court documents basically say that this thing was pretty suspect almost from the beginning.
Yeah, I would say so. The only way it could have been more obviously a scam is if people who donated were offered an extended car warranty and fake boner pills for life. So Bannon was arrested for scamming Trump's own supporters, but then Trump pardoned him at the last minute, and Bannon made this mysterious prediction the day before the January 6th insurrection.
It's not going to happen like you think it's going to happen, okay? It's going to be quite extraordinarily different. And all I can say is strap in. The War Room, a posse. You have made this happen, and tomorrow it's game day. So strap in. All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. Just understand this. All hell is going to break loose tomorrow.
I mean, I'm no detective, but it sounds like he knew something was up. It's like if Nicole Kidman had found a text on Hugh Grant's phone saying, "Took care of my mistress problem last night," with the hammer emoji. And if you haven't seen The Undoing yet, I didn't necessarily just spoil it. You don't know what he did with a hammer. Maybe he built his mistress a house. Spoiler alert, he didn't build her a house. Besides, you don't watch The Undoing for the mystery, you watch it for the scarves. Nicole Kidman layers scarves the way Bannon layers collared shirts. And when you look at that, we have landed the tangent. I mean, I think technically it counts as a segue now. So naturally, the congressional committee investigating the January 6th insurrection wanted to talk to Bannon, but he defied the subpoena at Trump's request. Congress held him in contempt. A grand jury indicted him, and today he turned himself in, although this time it was much less glamorous than getting arrested on a billionaire's yacht.
Trump ally, former White House advisor Steve Bannon, he is expected to surrender to authorities after being indicted on 2 counts of contempt of Congress, this for defying requests from the January 6th committee for testimony and documents, defying subpoenas. You're looking at live pictures of Bannon's home right now.
Gotta say, Bannon's house looks a lot more normal than I was expecting. I thought it was gonna be a little more like a burrow or a volcano in the shape of a skull, or he'd layer them like his shirts and it would be a house inside a second, slightly larger house. I also know we just made that joke. So Bannon's house looks normal on the outside, although I bet you it's much weirder inside. It's like when you finally meet a neighbor who keeps to himself and you think he must just be a quiet guy, and then you go inside and his sink is filled with old newspapers, his fridge is stuffed with takeout containers, and the shelves are filled with antique ceramic pigs. Also, your neighbor is Rudy Giuliani. You want the mayo? You want the mayo? It's scraped off the mold. It's mostly jaw now. And then, when Bannon finally showed up at the courthouse this morning to turn himself in, he of course, couldn't help but shout some incomprehensible anti-government babble into a camera.
We're taking down the Biden regime. Every day, the focus, you got Raheem Kassam today, you got Dr. Peter Navarro, Captain Bannon. You're going to have Boris Epstein, the whole show. Intense. We got polling out, economic data out, everything. I want you guys to stay focused, stay on message. Remember, signal, not noise. This is all noise, that's signal.
Wait, I'm sorry, you call yourself Captain Bannon now? It's like an ironic nickname they give the guy who rinses out the chum buckets down at the marina. Hurry up with those buckets, Bannon. We got barnacles to scrape. Oh, excuse me, Captain Bannon. Also, it really undercuts your attempt at defiance and bravado when there's a guy right behind you holding up a sign that says coup plotter. Gotta be a bummer for a guy like Bannon who thinks he's an evil mastermind to get upstaged by a sign that clearly took 5 minutes to make. Or one of Bannon's neighbors made it months ago just in case. Oh, what's that for, honey? Oh, I don't know. I just feel like we might need it one day. Bannon definitely likes to think of himself as a Logan Roy type, but he's more like a coked-up flunky who'd get hired to help cousin Greg shred some documents and accidentally screw it up. I'm pretty sure that Tom told us not to peruse any of the confidential materials, or in his words, I'd have to eat 1,000. This is just one step in the process of holding Trump and his cronies accountable for their assault on democracy, and it's absolutely necessary because Bannon's not alone. Virtually the entire institutional Republican Party has made it clear they remain fully devoted to Donald Trump and his ongoing attempt to unravel our constitutional order. And I'm not just talking about the obvious crazies, the Matt Gaetzes, Marjorie Taylor Greenes, Paul Gosars, and Louis Gohmerts of the world, or as Gates called them last week,
the killer G's. We've heard of the killer B's, but now it's Green, Gosar, Gates, Good, Gohmert.
The Killer G's is a good name for that group, as every time you remember their elected officials, your reaction is, kill me or Jesus. Also, you'd think if you had, within the last 12 months, helped foment a violent insurrection where rioters actually chanted they wanted to kill the vice president, you wouldn't go by the Killer G's. It's just a little too on the nose. It's like if we found out the New York Times spelling bee was designed by the Zodiac Killer, which wouldn't surprise me. Only a seriously twisted mind could come up with such an elaborate form of psychological torture. Yesterday, I spent the entire day trying to find every last word in the puzzle. And when my kids asked me what they could do to get me to make them dinner, I said, find me a word that uses all 7 of these letters. Because the center one is a real...
Killer G.
I mean, seriously. The Killer G's is one of the dumbest names I've ever heard. Did you steal it from a senior citizens bowling team? That's a cute name, Grandpa. Where'd you come up with it? Well, the G stands for Grandpa, and the Killer, well, let's just say I did some things in my youth that I'm not too proud of. Times were tough back then, and we had to survive. I got involved in things I don't understand. Gambling, crime, drugs, fucking cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin. Once you ride the Black Dragon, there's no telling what you'll do. I choked a man for a pint of gin. He was a drifter. Saw the life drain out of his eyes. His body went limp in my hands. Buried the body in the pine barrens. I left so many clues. Technically, it's a pan grab. But it's not just the so-called Killer G's who have fully bought into Trump and the GOP's ongoing coup. For example, last week, ABC released audio of an interview in which Trump defended the violent mob that stormed the Capitol and chanted, hang Mike Pence, after Pence declined to overturn the election results.
Were you worried about him during that siege? Were you worried about his safety?
No, I thought he was well protected, and I had heard that he was in good shape. Mm-hmm. No, because I had heard he was in very good shape. But no,
you heard those chants. That was terrible. I mean, it was,
he could have. Well, the people were very angry.
They were saying, "Hang Mike Pence."
Because it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right? Yeah. How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
The most shocking thing about that clip is when I heard it, my reaction was, all right, that tracks. I mean, it checked pretty much every Trump box. I wasn't worried about another person's safety. They kind of deserved it. Also, did I mention that I won the election? I mean, at this point, the only way I'm clicking on a link to Trump audio is if the headline reads, Trump exhibits empathy and remorse on Hannity. I up, Sean. I up bad, and I put my friend's life at risk. Dear Mike, sweet Mike, I hope he can forgive me, and if he doesn't, I wouldn't blame him for a second. The worst part, Sean, I knew I lost that election. I couldn't admit it. I don't know why. I think it's dad stuff, Sean, and if I'm being honest with myself, until I deal with the dad stuff, I'm not going to be the best version of myself. I mean, it's like Melania says to me every day, be best. Now, you'd think any sane human being would desperately want to disassociate themselves from that, and yet, when he was asked about Trump's comment on Sunday, Wyoming Senator John Barrasso, by no means considered one of the Killer G's. I mean, you'd have to change his name to Garasso, but still, repeatedly, he refused to criticize Trump for defending the mob's call to hang Mike Pence.
Can your party tolerate a leader who defends murderous chants against his own vice president?
Well, let me just say the Republican Party is incredibly united right now.
So you have no problem with the president saying hang Mike Pence is common sense?
I was with Mike Pence in the Senate chamber during January 6th, and what happened was they quickly got Vice President Pence out of there. I didn't hear any of those chants.
Well, we just played the chants. I'm asking if you believe, if you can tolerate the president saying hang Mike Pence is common sense.
It's not common sense. There are issues of every election.
But you're not going to criticize President Trump for those views?
I don't agree with President Trump on everything.
Look, George, the Republican Party is a big tent. We don't agree on everything. Some of us are pro-war. Some of us are anti-war. Some of us are pro-vaccine. Some of us are anti-vaccine. Some of us want to hang Mike Pence. Some of us don't hear when those people chant, hang Mike Pence. It's called inclusivity. But that's the reality. As much as we like to write it off as a fringe movement, it's not. It's the heart of the modern GOP. Virtually the entire institutional Republican Party, from the so-called Killer G's to the John Barrassos of the world, have apparently decided that their ticket back to power is an alliance with Trump and a guy who looks like he was stung by a swarm of
killer bees.
This has been a closer look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV/AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, get vaccinated. We love you.